It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bear Boat Alaska. Up your DIY hunting game with one of their 37-foot adventure yachts. You and 5 of your friends can hunt, fish, set crab pots, shrimp pots, and take DIY to the next level. Bear Boat Alaska is locally owned by a Ketchikan resident who lives here year-round. Call Larry at 907-617-4542 or go to bearboatalaska.com. That's B-A-R-E boatalaska.com and tell Larry you heard about it on this podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Daniel, this is your 3rd time on here, right?
That's it. I'm like a regular now.
You are. I've liked the revisiting and having guests on again. Sometimes you have a bigger understanding, can get past some of the initial stuff. When did you start hunting and this and that? And you can kind of get into more. You get a better feel for some of the good people. You have a more depth to it. I kind of like it.
Yeah. It's you go over the initial introductory questions and stuff, and you can get a little deeper.
Yeah, I actually want to start with something that's fairly deep. I saw that you went hunting with your dad this year, and that's a real special thing. My dad passed away in 2009, and I think about I don't dwell on it, but you think about opportunities that I didn't have with my dad because he passed away. So how special was it to hunt with your dad?
Well, first of all, sorry about the passing of your dad. That's sad. But I felt really honored. I felt very I felt like the baton had been passed on to me. I hadn't been hunting with my dad. I think it was at least 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I hadn't gone with him. And, we've been going every year, and I go with my friends. I go with my brothers. And when he said that he was interested in going, I was like, okay, let's do this. What do I got to do to make sure that he's comfortable? Because, he's done the full transition to the snowbird and the motorhome life.
Oh yeah.
So the first thing I told him, I was like, we're gonna be sleeping in a tent, right?
That's awesome.
But I will say that it was great. It was so cool to revisit those type of opportunities with my dad. And, I don't know how many more chances I'll have with that. And, he's the one that took me out when I was a young boy and a teenager. And for him to still want to come out and kind of turn the tables where, I was pretty much in charge and choosing where we're going and the trail and being in charge of all the gear and all the stuff. I almost felt like I was the dad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's awesome to have that rite of passage, that connection, that father-son thing, mother-daughter, mother-son, it doesn't really matter, but having that person in your life that you're able to do that, and I think it is really, really special. And if you don't have that, it can kind of be tough. I think about that with some of the students that I might teach or interact with, that they might not be learning some of these things from someone who might not have the mentor in their life, and that's something that kind of in the back of my head as a teacher. Do you does that kind of infiltrate or dictate some of the decisions that you make and how you treat some of the kids you work with?
Oh, 100%. I always show students the pictures of the things I'm doing, and as they, I'm in elementary school, but I have so many students. This is my 21st year, so I have students that now are adults that will come and visit me, or I'll run into them, or they'll find me on Facebook or something, and they'll reach out. And I've had several actually that I've kind of leaded into getting outside, whether it's fishing or hunting, and they'll call me for advice, and I've given them like old gear and old stuff like that, and offered to even take them on trips if they wanted to go. I think it's important, and I think it's really cool that for these students of mine that lived only with their mom, they were raised by their mom, and so maybe I'm the only guy that they know that is doing things like that, and for them to feel comfortable enough to reach out, all these years later and be like, hey, Mr. B,
Mm-hmm.
I knew you were into this stuff back then, and I'm looking to, purchase my first rifle, or, I'm trying to go out and go fishing. Like, do you have any advice? And I pretty much just like drop everything I'm doing to, show them or give them any type of advice that they could, that would help them out.
Yeah. There's certainly women can definitely raise boys. There is no doubt about that, but there is something different about that connection. Same thing with mother-daughter. There's just something that's a little different. Again, it doesn't mean that a single parent can't be a great parent and raise awesome kids. There's just something a little bit different. It's important to be able to have that other element.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of times it's, 100% you're right. They do have they can do it, but a lot of times, at least with the experiences I've had, is they're pretty much just on survival mode. With some of the students that I have, and they're just living with their mom and their brother and sisters, and they're just trying to survive. So, like, trying to do anything above and beyond just putting food on the table and making sure the kids are in school and all that stuff is sometimes tough. So to have someone from the outside be able to offer any type of advice, I think it's so cool.
Yeah. It's tough in a place like Alaska. You'd think that everybody would have access and everybody would fish, but I've had students in high school that have never fished before because no one was there to teach them, show them, or take them. And you just think, man, this is Southeast Alaska. I guess maybe Anchorage would make sense because it's a big city and they might not have access outside of the town. But like, how do you not hike and fish and hunt and all that stuff up in Alaska? It's just pretty crazy.
Oh, I run into it all the time. You have students or even friends that I grew up with that have never even like gone off the road. They see you doing all these, extracurricular things on these trails and rafts and hiking hunts and all this stuff. And to them, it's amazing. And they always reach out that they want to do it one day. I think they think it's daunting. They think it's like something really extreme when really it's not. Once you go do it. And I find it really cool when I actually take someone that's never been, and then they take it upon themselves to go. Like, I'll show them a certain area, and I'll be like, "You guys can continue to come here. Like, I have a different area. You guys can fish this area or hunt this area." And then year after year, they'll bring someone else they know, and the next thing you know, they're looking for new areas, and they'll call me and text me and say, "Oh, we were successful or we weren't successful," and just kind of like push them in that direction a little bit and kind of like take away some of those fears that they might have. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. I had a student ask me, I think on Tuesday of this week, Mr. Lynn, what do you do during your free time during the weekend? I said, I go home and I put on my corduroy jacket and I sit in my chair and I read poetry. And the look on some of the kids' face was like, "Oh, dude, he sucks. This is awful." I said, "No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually just got back from a mountain goat hunt with my wife." And some of them were like, "Dude, that's cool." It is pretty cool to have that connection. I have kids that want to show me the bucks that they killed, and there's one student that brought in the horns from the mountain goat she got. Her dad's a guide, and took her out, and they got a nice billy. So. It's just really cool to have that other connecting point, knowing that not all these kids are going to be, going off to college, or all these kids are going to, there's other interests too. And just to that connecting point, and they trust you more. It's a lot of fun. Makes it a lot more fun as a job too.
It is. It's pretty rewarding when you see that, especially if you had any type of influence on that.
Yeah. So you're talking about being a little bit intimidated with the road and whatnot. Speaking for like adults who are, maybe living in Ketchikan and thinking about going up there to visit, I'm really intrigued. And I just bought an alpaca raft, got in the mail a couple of days ago.
Nice.
And like some sort of float. Are there a whole bunch of places to float up there, or are there just a couple main ones? I think you've mentioned the Gulkana. What is a Gulkana summer recreation hunt or fishing trip look like? And then how does that vary from maybe a float trip that some people do for hunting?
I would say that there's several that you could do. Um, as far as like, class one, class two waters, beginner to medium, you know, skill level. And then there's also ones that, you better know what you're doing before you go on that river.
That's not me.
Um, yeah. And I got friends on both spectrums of that. And me, as I go with my family and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to do anything extreme. The Golcana is definitely, level one, I'd say, level one trip where, you're not going to run anything too extreme. Um, but there's the Kenai River. There's even smaller ones. Anytime someone's going to start off, I like to tell them to go to Portage Creek, which is really close to town. It's like, 30 minutes outside of town. And you can just start at the lake and cruise to the highway. And you're pretty much kind of following the road that goes in there. So if you do come across anything or something happens, you're close, and your phone works there. So you're not like totally in the middle of nowhere, but it's a good starting point to, kind of learn your raft or learn your pack raft or whatever you got. And then from there, I like to tell people, well, once you do that, then you can start doing like the upper Kenai or the middle Kenai River. And then from there, you can go on to some of these longer trips, like a Golcana trip. We've been doing it for a long time, and we squeeze it into like a Thursday to Sunday, which makes for really long days on the water. I do plan on taking the family out next year, and I'm probably going to do like a 6-day so that it's not so long of a day on the raft. I mean, for me, I don't mind being on the raft for like, 10 hours. But if you're bringing a kid, that might be a little bit long.
Yeah.
Especially if it's pouring rain.
What about put in and takeouts? Is there a pretty balanced amount of put-ins and takeouts? I was looking at something like on the Yukon maybe, and if you put in at Circle or whatever, you're going a long way until you hit the highway. So do you have like a 7-mile section you like, 14, 15, or is it pretty much everything that you could ever want?
For the Golcana?
For any of these around, is it?
Yeah, no, well, there's various ones. So yeah, there's different lengths, and I guess it depends on how far you want to go per day. So you can choose short routes, like for example, like on the Upper Kenai, if you were going to start up at the lake, there's kind of like a midday trip where you could go and you can stop at Sportsman's Landing. That's where the Kenai Ferry is. Or you could start at the ferry and go to Jim's Landing, and that's another like half-day trip, So it depends how much time you have. And then there's also the full day if you want to start at the lake and go all the way down. And then if you have a motor, you can continue through Jim's and then, go through Ski Lac and do the middle. So you could really do a few hours, or you could do a few days.
Yeah.
On that river. And the same with the Golcana. The Golcana, I would say you probably need at least 3 days to do the first section. You're kind of away from the road. But that second section, if you were to start at Sourdough you're more by the road. So that's like a shorter, you could probably do even like a day or two trip on that one.
Cool. Do you see a lot of those sound like really fun fishing trips, recreation type trips? Do people go down those same rivers for hunting?
Not on the Kenai. I have thought about hunting on the Golcana. I haven't heard of many people doing it. I like to do that like in July, for weather purposes and the level of the water. I haven't heard much of people doing it for hunting. And to be honest, I don't remember ever seeing a lot of game, when we go on the trips, but we're not being quiet either.
Yeah,
we're drinking beers and, hooting and hollering. So, but there's other ones that you could do where you could definitely do a hunting trip on it.
Yeah. It's getting to that time of year where I'm thinking about, I've transitioned from the summer fishing and those sort of adventures to the hunting. And of course, I'm thinking about one of the most iconic Alaska trips you could do, which would be a float for moose. And so you start looking at the logistics of, okay, where are you going to go? First of all, tag. Do you need to draw? Is it over the counter? and then how big of a raft and where's the put in and the takeout and whatnot. But do you do is your moose a drive-in or a float, or have you done both, or which one do you prefer?
I've done both. I have been on 3 moose float hunts. I'm probably going to do a moose float hunt next year. My dad and my 2 uncles, who'd never have gone hunting either, went on this ATV hunt with me this past August, September. And so I'm thinking of planning a float with them next year. As far as choosing a river, like the ones that we did, we ended up finding someone that had done it before to kind of get basically for safety purposes, just to be like, well, is there anything crazy we need to know? Is there any kind of rapids or waterfall or a pinch point or anything like that, so that we could look it up in the map? And as you've talked about several times, like e-scouting and all that, there's only so much you could do.
Yeah.
And so you can do all as much as you want, but till you really get there, you don't really realize there's no way to camp here. There's no way to stop here. So once you do the river once, like we've done one river 3 times, and now I feel like we know it. Now we know okay, well, next time we'll camp here, and as you go down, we're marking well, this would be an excellent lookout spot or excellent camp spot. So I think it takes at least 2 times to do a river or a creek to feel comfortable knowing where to stop and where are good hunting spots. And then also, like the first 2 times that we did this specific river, we didn't bring a motor. And then we realized in the end, this is actually motorized on the second part, and it ended up saving us a day and a half. So we got more time hunting and then less time on the float out, because the end it got all flat and windy, and it was a nightmare just oaring. It was a day, 2 days of just straight oaring,
Yeah.
And so once you have that motor and that you can motor that end part, it made it a lot smoother.
Do you get a lot of river changes? A lot of the rivers down here are smaller because they're island rivers, and so it takes a lot of snow with the runoff, and then a ton of rain too, to kind of misdirect, create new bars or braids in the water or in the river. Do you get more of that up there?
Yes, that definitely happens. I think you can notice it a lot if you're going to the same river, several times, especially if you're fishing, and you'll notice man, last year the fish were running over here and now they're on the other side. Or you'll notice the water's not as high over here on this bend, and now it's moved over. So yeah, those things are always changing, especially those rivers up north when you're going up by Fairbanks and stuff like that, and they're getting a whole bunch of snow, and then that snow comes down and all those trees get pushed down through that water, and it just kind of changes the terrain. So those are important things. There's some really good books. Man, I got to think of the one that there's a really, 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 really good Alaska book. I'll have to send you the copy of it. I'm trying to think of what the lady's name.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plans shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Man, I don't have it on hand, but basically she outlines almost every floatable river in Anchorage with several putouts, what to look for, and all those different things, so that you at least have a somewhat idea of like how long it's going to take and what the conditions of the water are. And there's people like Luke Mell. I don't know if you heard of him. He wrote the hold on, let me the pack raft guide, the Alaska pack raft guide.
Okay.
And he's an excellent source of information. He's always open to like taking phone calls. He's done so many rivers on pack rafts and knows so many places. So there's definitely people that have most likely done whatever river or creek that you're going to want to do. And, people are open to sharing because nobody wants to see anybody like get hurt or get stranded out there.
Does it feel, it feels to me like if you plan a trip up there, you'd just be so worried about people showing up and people being up there. When I was on the Hall Road this year, I was just amazed at how many people were up there. I expected to see some truck traffic, but then there were also people who were just sightseeing, just wanted to drive the road, and there were people, scientists or whoever that were at those stations, and then just a ton of hunters too. I would think that a lot of those float hunts in the Mat-Su Valley, out by Matanuska and whatnot, that would just be, you'd constantly be worried about finding a lot of people. Is it like that, or are you something you can't worry about?
You're definitely gonna run into people. I feel like it doesn't matter unless you have a super cub, and even those guys tell me they're running into people. Mm-hmm. But the thing with the river is you might run into a group or pass a group, but you go a couple bends and you feel like you're in your own area there, because a lot of those rivers, I mean, you're talking 80-mile river and you might see 4 groups. And so you'll just kind of go past them and make sure you're far away. And a lot of times you're leapfrogging with these guys, and a lot of times, like the one river we've gone, we know that there's some good spots. And so we'll see some other guys that are going to go and like, well, we got to get ahead of them so that we can get to that good spot, because if they've been there before, they're probably gunning for the same spot as you, because it has a good lookout or has a good, flat spot to camp.
Mm-hmm. Have you got a couple of spots dialed in and that consistently produce, or are you kind of always in I got to find this new spot, or let's try this spot? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say I have 2 spots that I've done that we have been successful, and people I know that have gone have been successful. But I'm always looking for another spot. Mm-hmm. I'm always looking for another river, another place, because to me it's exciting to go down something that I've never been on, and just to see new country and new areas. I get in this conversation with guys that go to the same moose camp every year. I think it's beautiful that they have this tradition with their family or their dad or their uncle and whatever their group of guys in. I know Jack goes with his dad and their group, and Brandon goes with Eric and their dad and their group, and they go to the same spot every year. I get a little jealous of that, but I feel they also get a little jealous of me going to go check out all these new spots, because they feel so committed to the same thing, whereas I'm still searching like for new spots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be tough, too. If you go a year without getting one, you think, okay, well, it was a down year. Maybe it was this or that. And then you start getting 2 years without one. Okay, this is an awesome camp. I really like it. I enjoy the experience, but it would be nice to get a moose as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And last year on the river that we went on, we saw lots of moose. We unfortunately didn't get one that year. We had an opportunity. We missed the opportunity, and that we also had an opportunity on some caribou and didn't get the caribou. We actually got COVID. That kind of ruined everything. I got so sick that's the worst thing that happen is when you're sick on the river, because there's no getting out of there.
Yeah.
But these other guys we knew, they were successful on them, and we had leapfrogged them, and they were in one of the spots we wanted to go, and they ended up being successful in that spot. But we talked to another guy that we know who did that river this year, and he didn't see a thing. So I don't feel as bad, or I feel bad for him that he didn't see anything, but I feel okay, or less FOMO, that we didn't do the river this year, because he went and he camped exactly where we were last year and saw 4 or 5 really nice bulls, and he didn't see one. So it seems kind of to be the theme of the year. There's been low numbers and low people being successful this year. I'm not really sure what caused that or why. I mean, maybe all this rain, but
yeah. Have you noticed dips in the past where it's maybe a couple of years things are a little bit off, or maybe it could also just be the friend circle? There are times where it seems like every single person is shooting a deer because every single person that is shooting a deer happens to be in your friend group or that you're following on Facebook. Do you kind of see this ebb and flow of moose success?
I think I see it more with the caribou. I think I see it more with the caribou. All the guys that I know, I mean, they're hunting caribou and moose. I think, man, this seems to be like the first year that I've seen like low numbers of people being successful with the moose. I've seen lots of ebbs and flows with the caribou, as so either they're there or they're not, but moose it seems to be a little bit different. I don't really know what the answer is there on why it is. Like you said, it could be the circle of friends, like, maybe our group or the people we know that weren't successful, but there's obviously, you go online or on Instagram and you see people posting pictures, and there's obviously success happening.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. That's such a weird thing, and even if you talk to biologists, even it's difficult for them to have a real good. They have the best finger on the pulse because they have the most information, the most resources available. But even them, it's very difficult to tell, and it's educated guess at best, and that's just kind of what we're dealing with. And then you have anecdotal evidence, which sometimes is good, sometimes it's just your observation, which might be the exception to the rule, and that can be tough to then figure out if this is a trend or a 1-year thing or what.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think anyone really has the answer.
No. What would be your answer to the hunt that you have the most dialed in? Like, you do a lot of stuff there. You've got your sheep program, you've got your float moose program, you've got your caribou program. You got all those. Which one do you think you have the most kind of dialed in?
I would say my caribou hunt is probably the most dialed in, but that's changing now because I don't know if you know this, but that Nelchina herd that we've hunted, for the last, 15 years, a lot of them went to their winter grounds and they've integrated with the 40-mile herd.
Oh.
So now the numbers are way less. And so now what's happening is they are not putting out, the quotas are less and less. So typically I used to like to wait till the end, till it closes the 20th. I normally would go the 17th or like the 16th and run it to the end, because I would know where they would be herding up and where they'd be crossing these mountains. But now that they changed it, it's like you got to go out on the opener. You got to go out that first week or else it's closed. And so the areas where I would be successful in the past, where it's later and it's snowing and they're all grouped up, it's not the same. So you try to go to that same spot, earlier in August or whatever, and there's nothing there.
Interesting. When I was up in Fairbanks for the Hull Road hunt, we went the very beginning of August just because that was what worked for both my buddy Ryan and I. And people were talking about the herd hadn't really, like the 40-mile hadn't really moved into position yet. And if, they were closer to Canada or whatever. And then when we went up north on the Hull Road, they hadn't really started herding together. And there were just a few singles, and that was all we were hunting at. It was like everybody was going after the couple singles that happened to be unlucky enough to be next to the road, and it was pretty chaotic. But, I just expected to see massive amount, and I didn't see any more than 2 together at the same time, which was pretty wild. That was way
Yeah,
north too.
and that depends. Either there's a plethora and you get to choose one, or there's like onesie twosies, if you're lucky. And I was actually just talking to a buddy last night about it, because we didn't get our caribou and he didn't get his caribou, and so we're talking about possibly going to ADAC. I don't know if you looked
Oh,
into that at all. So basically, the deal with ADAC, it's unlimited caribou, because there's no predators there. The flight is pretty cheap if you're a resident in Anchorage and you got miles, and you can rent. You could bring all your gear, or you can rent a house and a truck from somebody over there, and just hike around and stay for a week, fairly cheap. Probably cheaper than I've done my last moose hunt. Bringing in all the stuff on ATVs and all that, and gas and everything that you bring. So we're actually thinking about possibly running up there and seeing if we can get something.
that's
Because
hilarious.
there's a lot of us that haven't done it, and I always just new people that have never done anything. I thought it was going to be daunting, because I've heard both ways. I've heard, well, you go there and they're right there and you're successful, and then I hear people that go there and it's a nightmare. So after speaking to several other people that have gone, it's like, oh, actually, it's not. It doesn't sound that difficult. It doesn't, and it's not that expensive. And it's unlimited caribou. Not that you need a bunch. I mean, I just need one.
Yeah.
So it's really like a meat, a harvest kind of deal. And as a backup plan for me and some of my other buddies that were not successful this year, it's pretty enticing to look into that.
Yeah. That is something else. That's a funny audible. Like, rather than, I'm just going to drive to this other county or whatever. If you're down south on the road system, just, maybe head over here, or, I picked up an over-the-counter tag in Colorado or something like that. Like flying to ADAC. That's badass.
And as we were talking about it last night, it's almost easier than it would be us, driving and trying to do, the 40-mile winter.
Mm-hmm.
Because you go do that, and you got to load up the snow machines, and you got to have a ability to stay warm if you're bringing all this firewood for a Arctic oven or a motorhome or renting a cabin, and you start adding up all the costs. It's like, well, it's cheaper to fly to ADAC, and just bring minimal stuff like you would go on a sheep hunt. You could do it that way. And then my other buddy was saying, well, I rented this house and a car for this price. And I was like, well, that's cheaper than what I just spent on a moose hunt, So I was like, that's actually a really, really good option.
Yeah. My Alaska geography is failing me a little bit. ADAC is it closer or further than Attu? Or where is it in relation to Unalaska? Or is Unalaska on ADAC?
That's a really good question.
Like, how far out the Aleutians are we talking here?
Let me see. Good thing I have a computer on my phone, or a computer in my pocket here, actually in my hand. So ADAC is...
It's like halfway out the chain, right? If not further?
Yeah, so it's past Unalaska. So it goes, it's between Unalaska and Attu.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and there's different ways to do it. Like there's guys that do it with boats, and which is really, you probably have the most success that way. Obviously, it's more expensive. It's a little bit more cozy because you're coming back to the boat, a nice boat every night, and you got a heater and food and all that stuff on the boat, and you can cruise around the island and find them. Or you can, it seems like you could go as minimal as you would on a sheep hunt, or as big as a moose hunt.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the amount of gear you can go, because you're going on Alaska Airlines, and if you're a Club 49 member, you can have 3 bags.
Yeah.
So I was kind of hashing out the details. I was like, well, how do you get the meat back, and how much stuff are you bringing? And so it just seemed like endless. However you wanted to do it, you could go full glam and bring everything, or you can go mountain house style.
Yeah. Huh. How long is that flight?
Good question. I don't know. I do know that it was only 7,000 miles.
Oh, whoa.
Actually,
that's not surprising at all. I mean, that's not exactly a place that people are going to this time of year. It's not not a hotbed. It's not Not Hawaii in December.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, exactly. That's funny you said that because my wife and I just booked for Hawaii, and we could have went halfway around the world with the amount of money we spent to go to Hawaii.
Yeah. It looks like, according to the Alaska Airlines app here, it's 3 hours and 11-minute flight.
Okay, is that out of Anchorage?
Yeah, Anchorage to Adak, 3 hours and 11 minutes. 3 hours gets you. Shoot,
That's not bad.
that gets you from Seattle like halfway across the U.S.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. And I know that they do it. The flights are like Wednesdays and Saturdays, I want to say you
Hmm.
said. So you could even do like just a Wednesday to Saturday. I'd probably want to do the week long, so you have more time.
Yeah. Huh.
But just like anything out there, I mean, the later you go, the better chances you are, is what I heard, because the animals are on a certain side of the island. Um, and then as November comes along, they move to the closer to where you get dropped off at.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then also you're dealing with, worse weather.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Interesting. Have you got any caribou super early in the season? One of the things my buddy Ryan and I were both kind of, I guess, maybe surprised about is that the antlers it seemed like they were 100% cartilage. We both shot relatively young ones. Mine was pretty young, but I mean, it was velvet and cartilage. There didn't seem to be like a whole lot of really solid bone there. Is that just because we shot small ones, or early on in the year? Is that kind of what to expect?
You probably just shot small ones. I have got 3 caribou that were in the velvet. I mean, big caribou, double shovel, everything, fully velveted. I want to say the earliest we've ever got a caribou was the first week of August.
Mm-hmm.
And that was on a youth hunt that we went, and we got a nice one. And then I've gotten several on the opener on like August 10th.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we were kind of figured that it was probably a little bit of both. Even when you get a nice mature black-tailed deer in the velvet, you're going to lose a little bit because it hasn't totally hardened. So as you're peeling off the velvet, you take a little bit out. And so we figured it was kind of that, but then we started thinking about some of those larger ones. And if you do lose a little bit of mass once you take the velvet off.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one actually that I kept the velvet on, and I had a Euro done with the velvet on because it was just so pretty. It was like a golden color.
Yeah.
And I was, man, this is too pretty to peel this thing off.
Yeah.
And so the taxidermist was able to formaldehyde it, I think they did, and save that velvet look, which was beautiful.
Have you gotten into any of that taxidermy stuff a little bit? It seems like it'd be cool to be able to do, but then you got to have a lot of extra chemicals and space just laying around, and I don't know if I'm down with that.
Yeah, it's a messy job, man. I have messed with it in the past, as far as like boiling it and talking to these guys using different chemicals to bleach it and all that stuff. I was never impressed with any of the work that I did.
Uh-huh.
And actually Brandon, he's actually gotten really good at it. I think he really enjoys it. So I don't mind dropping it off to Brandon or one of the other guys that I know that's going to actually do it right. And I have several that, they're just in my backyard and nature's just taking their the natural taxidermy going on.
That's a cool look too. That's the rustic, just found it out deadhead type look, which is pretty cool too. If it's too white and too gleamy, I mean, it looks really nice and it's great to be inside, but there's something else to be said about that rustic look too.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I had a really nice one that I've let Brandon experiment with, because I want it to look really nice, but I want it to be outside on my shed.
Nice.
And so he did a process to it, and it didn't hold as he came by. He's like, oh, that didn't work what I need to do. So he's going to take it back and try to fix it up. And he's trying to figure out, I should say, is what's the best, chemical combination or staining combination to make it look like an indoor one, but that stays outside in the weather.
Mm-hmm. Well, how much of the stuff do you get taxidermy now at this point? Like, do you have a couple caribou and you're kind of done going forward? Do you have the black bear on the wall? Do you have kind of a one of each type thing, or are you just collecting and collecting? Gets expensive after a while.
It is expensive after a while, and to be honest, I'd probably have more, but my wife said there's a 3-head limit in our house.
Total or per animal?
So I have a nice velveted caribou Euro in my house, and then I have another really big caribou, all Euro, and then I have the sheep in there. And then what I've been doing, I have that other nice one that's for outside. I got a couple just laying around in the back. The kids play with them and people check them out. But I've started to get them done and give them to friends and family for gifts.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I gave my brother-in-law a really nice one, and I got a couple cousins that have visited, and they live in Florida or Colorado, and I was like, well, I don't need any more, but I can get them, do it cheaply, and send it to them, and at least someone's appreciating it.
Yeah, we found a cool deadhead up on that Hall Road hunt, and it was not a massive caribou, but it was just an iconic looking caribou, and thought, man, this would be pretty cool. I'm definitely not going to go through the trouble of hiking it back the 5 miles back to the road, and then have to deal with it there. And it was day 2 of the hunt, and so we were hoping to have antlers ourselves to take home, and so it would have been just like a lot of extra to have. So we left it out there, but yeah, deadheads are pretty cool, and sheds and all that.
Yeah, it's a big thing. We as Jack and I went on our sheep hunt, there was these 2 guys that came out of the area. We went in, and they were shed hunting. They had all kind of caribou and moose antlers, and it seemed like they went in there specifically for that reason. And as Alaskans, they use that stuff for so many cool door handles and lamps and things like that. And if I don't come home with the head, my kids are disappointed, even if it's the littlest spike fork or whatever, they want to see it,
Yeah.
So I bring it home, and if it just lays in the garage or they end up, playing swords with it, it's fine.
There's a huge market for elk antlers in the lower 48, and I didn't know how crazy people were about it. I figured that people would just, if you happen to be out there in the spring, you just go and get them. But there are people who apparently chase down the elk hoping that they will drop the antlers. It's horribly illegal, but they're trying to stress out the elk to get them to drop the antlers, and so they can take them in. And I'm not sure exactly how much they're worth, but you can make hundreds and hundreds of dollars depending on how many elk antlers you get. And I just thought, wow, that's crazy. So people are they're looking for dozens of antlers, not just going for a nice stroll hoping for one.
Oh, they're actually hunting it almost for some sort of profit.
Yeah, it's crazy. And there's a season, I think it's you can't shed hunt until a certain time, just to prevent people from stressing out the animals that might be in their winter range. They got harsh winters down there, get through that. You don't want people that are crowding or trying to do weird stuff with them. But it's something else.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know that there's people that do that and they're super into it, but I always wonder what are they doing with all these? I mean, I know that people make cool chandeliers and stuff like that, but I didn't know that it was such a profitable opportunity.
Yeah, I didn't know either. That's I did a little Google search right here. The average price per pound for grade A brown elk antler is between $12 and $16.
Wow.
Yeah, this is from Outdoors Mecca website. That's crazy. And then grade B is if they're white, $8 to $11 per pound, and then grade C is chalk, $1 to $3. Man, yeah. So if you get where a herd was, and you're getting 2 dozen antlers, and those things can weigh 15, 20 pounds, you're making some money.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of my days when I used to collect aluminum cans when I was a kid.
Yeah. Shoot, that's
Do they do that with? Is there a market for the caribou and the moose antlers too?
I don't know. I would shoot. This is something to take note of. This is just down south stuff, so it talks about deer. And I'm assuming that's mule deer, but I don't know. Caribou antler price. I mean, you always see people who are selling them. You go to where's that antler place in by Butte up there by you guys, or
Oh
that not
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
reindeer
yeah,
place?
yeah,
They're selling antlers there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder if it's the legality of that. I mean, obviously the
Ooh,
reindeer ones because they're farming it,
yeah,
but I wonder. I always thought that you couldn't sell things like that.
yeah.
Um, so I always gifted it away. But now you got me thinking maybe I should be selling this to my family.
Yeah, you were like, this is a nice, cheap way that I can be giving relatives gifts, but man, maybe you need to. I bought you this, or I didn't sell this, so this is actually there's a monetary value. Yeah, I'm not sure if I wouldn't think there would be a problem with just collecting sheds and trying to sell them. You know, you see those at antique stores, you see them around all over the place, so I don't think there would be a problem. But um,
Yeah, that's funny. I saw a guy last winter, and he had like this old like Dodge Ram truck, like really old, like from the 70s, and he had moose horns and caribou horns stacked up like, I don't know, 20 feet. It was crazy. It was like, how is this guy even allowed to drive down the road with this thing? And it just sparked my mind. I was like, what is this guy doing with all this stuff? But now it makes sense if he's selling it or making some kind of money off that thing. But it was like an insane amount. It was an insane amount of like sheds he had in the back of his truck, like 3 times the height of his truck.
huh,
I gotta find the picture. I'll send it to you
that's
because I
crazy.
had to take a picture. I was like, look at this guy.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of harkens back to those old days when you had those buffalo hunters who were just, selling for hides and just massacring bison for the hides.
Yeah.
So there's always been a market. So I wonder, there's probably some laws that were put in there to prevent the wholesale slaughter of the species that might still be on the books in some areas. And I wonder if some of that stuff is in Alaska too. But
Yeah, it's got to be. And thinking about that, I wonder if with the elk stuff, if they're grinding it down and creating some sort of like a supplement or something.
oh, I wonder. This is a whole man. There are people listening to this who are going to be like, dude, these guys what are they talking about? But yeah, I do wonder. I mean, I think for deer or something like that, I think there's, something about
I
horns and
think there is
antlers.
something like that. Yeah, because there's always you always heard about like the black bear gallbladder
Hmm.
and things like that, and oosiks and things like that. But man, there's got to be. I'm gonna actually geek out on this when I go home
Yeah.
and do that because I'm sure I know that they do have a deer horn, like some sort of supplement. Now I don't know if that's just like in the Asian culture or where that stems from. But there's got to be something to it. We'll have to get back to the people on that.
Yeah. I definitely think, was it the rhino horn? Something about that.
Oh
Cultural,
yeah,
um, cultural
yeah. It's like the
importance
natural
or
Viagra or something, isn't
yeah.
it? Something
Yeah.
like
I
that.
think, I think something like that. Huh. Yeah. Interesting. That's great. That's some interesting stuff right there. Uh, yeah. And I would be curious to see, what the difference is.
Yeah, I could be sitting on a bunch of money in my backyard.
Maybe, yeah. Of course, the amount of money that it takes you to get out there and do stuff. I know
Yeah.
there's I don't know if you've heard of Corey Jacobson. He's a big elk hunter guy. He does
Yep. Yes, I
destination
have.
elk. Yeah, he and cameraman John, they did a little fly in and then floated, and they did their shed hunting that way, which it seemed like just a fun. You fly out and then you float down a river. I thought, man, that's going hard for some antlers.
Yeah, that is going hard for some antlers. They must have a real reason,
Yeah.
for that. And I heard, I don't know, you might know, they have, I heard you're not even allowed to like remove if you find like a mammoth tusk or something like that. Like you're supposed to leave it. Like I heard you're not even allowed to like remove it from the area now
Yeah,
because people have been going and like actually like searching them out and getting them. I know that my wife's my wife's grandpa was a geologist back in the day in Alaska, and he himself had a really nice mammoth tusk that he like kind of gifted down to his kids and has kind of made their way down. So I'm hoping that one day it'll come to me, but I don't know what the legality of having that is. Maybe because he found it, so long ago, it's okay.
Got
But
grandfathered in.
I thought I read something that now you're not allowed to even like, kind of like the Clovis thing.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
you're not supposed to like pick that stuff up in certain places.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really interesting. I know down here, I think with whale carcasses, if there's a whale carcass, it has to be officially documented that there is a dead whale on the beach before you're able to collect any of the bones or the baleen. So you have to get like, authorization from I don't know, troopers or fishing game or something like that in order to it's a dead whale, but you can't even pick up the bones unless you have clearance. So that's kind of interesting.
I think it's the same with the walrus.
Yeah.
The walrus deal.
Just to make absolutely sure that you weren't involved in some sort of weird poaching type thing or whatever, which makes sense. Like it seems ridiculous on some level, but at the same time, you just got to make sure that people aren't using loopholes and getting super shady.
Yeah, for sure. But I guarantee you there's thousands of people with those things in their homes.
For sure. For sure, without question. Yeah. That's interesting. That's the weird thing about relics. Like you find a relic and it's a cool thing, but it's also, could have cultural significance and it doesn't belong to your culture. So, like, should you give it to donate to a museum? Is that the right thing to do? Like if you have it in your place, you're honoring it and you're treasuring it, and you have this story of, hey, you found this, but obviously if that's an archaeological site, then you should probably preserve the archaeological site, and it'd be cool to have that stuff at a museum. So. Finders keepers is a weird game.
Yeah, I think they're trying to change all that. I mean, because even you've heard of people finding, old dinosaur bones and stuff in their backyard, and they pretty much get confiscated.
Yeah. It's,
if you tell somebody.
yeah. Not advocating for anybody to do anything. You got to just do whatever you do. But
that's right.
Interesting. Well, man, it's a nice Thursday evening. It might be the last nice evening before it starts raining. Once it starts raining down here, it might not stop until February. So,
well, it started here in July and hasn't stopped.
I know you guys just get a few months of rain and you guys freak out. If the weather flips for just a little bit.
This has been a little bit more than normal. This has been pretty different. It's been raining like intensely like every day since July 15th. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's not good. Definitely some flooding and some devastation, which is horrible. The rivers drain so well up there because you have just so much more area, but shoot, you get enough rain and there's going to be some problems. That's not good.
There is. I mean, I never had water in my. My wife asked me to check the crawl space the other day, and there was some water down there, and I was surprised because, we lived in that house for a long time, and I've never, ever, ever seen water down there. It's not a lot. It's nothing that's alarming or anything, but I don't have a sub pump down in my house. But it got me thinking, well, maybe I should get one installed because I've never seen water in there, and that just kind of accounts to the rainfall that's happened.
Yeah.
It's July.
Well, I mean, if you didn't have something to keep you up at night, now you do, right? I mean, it'd be horrible if you didn't have something to worry about.
Yeah. And I'm actually really glad I got this patch in my roof done back in June because I had a small leak. When it would rain and it would blow a certain way, it would like kind of come under some of those shingles, and I didn't think it was bad, and we ended up just getting it done, and I'm glad I did because it would have been a big problem.
Good call.
Yeah.
Get some bonus points for having the foresight on that one.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't bad at all, but it was just one of those like, I better go ahead and get this looked at, and I'm glad I did because it would have turned into a major problem.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on here, man. Give me the pitch for Alaska Wild Project. You guys are in the 80s now of your podcast episodes. Where can people find you there and donate to or the cause on follow you guys and events? What do you got?
Yeah, so we just recorded episode 82, and we got the ball rolling. I think we're booked with guests all the way till December. AlaskaWildProject.com. We just got a big new order of merch. So if anyone wants to get some sort of logo gear, you can go to the website there, and we'll ship it to you anywhere in the world that you're listening to. That's probably the best way to support us. It's kind of a walking advertisement for us. And high quality shirts and hats and hoodies and stuff like that. And if you're in town, we got some of the stuff there at Barney's. So yeah, we're keep pushing, and then we're still coming with an episode a week, and it's been fun, and we're really excited for some of the guests we got coming up. And if you haven't checked it out, you can find it on Apple. We do a video version on YouTube that comes out every Saturday. That's been steadily growing. So we appreciate you guys. Appreciate you having us on, and check it out.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Always good to talk to you, buddy.
All right, Jeff. Talk to you later.
Take care.